97%.
To blanketly go, we need to increase this, it should be higher, is leading to people being accused.
Well, if you think we should reduce the successful prosecution rate of all crimes to 3% to avoid prosecuting people who didn't do it, then I'll listen to you. But if you're saying that rape is this special case where...
I'm not making a case for a special case.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying that there is another argument that sometimes the fact there's a low prosecution rate means, let's say it. The other side of it is, as far as punishment goes there, if someone is accused of rape, at the moment, their name can be made public. The accuser's name can't. That person's reputation, they could lose a job, they could lose a family, they may not have done anything.
It's very odd that no one makes these arguments about any other crime except for rape, and I just think that's really odd.
OK. Anna.
Rape is often the most difficult case to prosecute. When the issue is consent, so you have two people, it tends to be a man and a woman, who are known to each other. It's not denied that sexual intercourse took place, but the issue is consent. They are very, very difficult to prosecute. The maximum sentence for rape is life, so the powers are there. And in my experience, judges get it right. And if you are convicted of rape, certainly after trial, you can expect to go away for at least 5 years. At least 5 years. And then, as many people in here will know from their experiences, there will be certain circumstances where it is higher and higher. And in my experience, judges get rape, and they know how to sentence, and they dish out, quite rightly, tough sentences. It's one of the most serious, appalling crimes that can be committed.
OK. Yeah, lady here.
I do realise, obviously, that rape is very hard to convict, but, you know, surely 3%, that is not really a high...
I thought it was higher than that, actually, I must say.
To be honest, that's not very high. I mean, surely there should be stricter laws, considering it is probably one of the most worst crimes you commit, because you do not give consent, you know, to have sexual intercourses. It scars people for life, and, you know, repeat offenders, if they're not caught in time, it's going to be worse, isn't it? So surely the government should be able to clamp down on the laws to make it a lot harder, you know, for people not to get away with it and to put them behind bars.
Peter?
I think no one's arguing about the horrible nature of rape or the need to punish convicted rapists seriously. What seems to me to be behind this, though, is a willingness to set aside the greatest protection that our liberty has in this country, which is the presumption of innocence. Nobody can put you in prison in this country until they've proved to the satisfaction of a jury that you've done what you're accused of. It's very difficult to do that in the case of rape, because it is often simply the case of one person's word against another. And some of you will have sat on juries. All of you probably will. When you do, you will find that it's extremely difficult to make up your mind about this. And when you are considering whether to send somebody to prison, which we've all agreed is a very unpleasant place, perhaps for many years, and to ruin his life forever, then you have to think very hard about whether and what you believe. How you can get rid... I would pay almost any price to preserve jury trial and the presumption of innocence, because they are the absolute, solid bedrock of the liberty which we have in this country, more valuable than democracy, more valuable than practically anything else in keeping the state from being too powerful. Be very careful about listening to siren calls for dropping the rules of evidence and making it easier to convict. It may be you, one day, who is more easily convicted as a result, and then you'll know what it means.
OK, yeah, a lady here.
Oh, you're blaming the victim there. You are the person that is installing rape culture into this country. The reason why there's such a small amount of people that are convicted is because people don't report it because of rape culture. There needs to be this whole change in the attitude of people. Poor people that are convicted of rape, oh, how are their lives ruined? Forget about that. The victim has to live with that for the rest of their life. But yet you're saying that the person that's done it, oh, they're going to go to prison for 5 years. That's such a hard thing for them to do. There's a footballer who's now about to go back into the public eye, who's been convicted of raping a 19-year-old girl.
Don't name him, please.
I won't name him, but he's about to go back, and he has had so many people go, oh, he's ruined his life because he's managed to rape this girl. Well, what about her?
I think we'll move away from specifics, actually. We'll take your point. Yes, lady with the blue hair.
It still doesn't make it right to send a person to prison unless you've proven guilty, does it?
No, but we do have to address rape culture in this country.
Well, it's a different question.
Prevalent. The UN have found this is one of the most sexist countries because of just the casual sexism. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, lady here. You didn't even say that.
We need to look at preventative causes of rape, and we need to look at the breakdown of the family and fathers not being around, and the way that people treat women, men in society, and that needs to go back to the family unit being re-established and it being important and it being supported by the government.
Okay, yeah, lady with the blue hair, I didn't come to you before,
Before I got interrupted, basically people are terrified of coming forward when they've been raped, and we need to really get rid of that for people to be convicted properly. Because, well, who on earth would want to go through being asked how much you've drunk, what you were wearing, what you were doing, when that has nothing to do with it whatsoever?
I absolutely promise you, you do not get asked those questions now.
I have someone I know who has been asked that.
I'm sorry. It used to be the case that there were people who would be asked, oh, what were you wearing, how much you'd had. Sometimes drink plays a part in it if you're saying to somebody you can't remember this or that and the other. But the idea now that you would be asked what you were wearing, as if there's some idea that you
Well, this was a year ago, and she was asked that.
I happily talk to you about that, because in my experience, judges and indeed barristers absolutely do not ask those questions. But you're right, and I would just put that into the mix. Just stop and think about it. For somebody to go forward and to make an allegation of rape, how likely is it that they would actually make that up when they know what will happen when they do have to go to court and have to relive it? And the idea that people make up rape is absolute nonsense.
They do get anonymity.
But it's also...
They do get anonymity.
You know, the other important thing to say is that however well judges and lawyers and police officers behave, we were talking about the idea of rape culture, and I think there is real truth to that. And the problem is, it is ultimately juries who decide. This is not incompatible with what Peter's saying. He's quite right that it's vital to preserve the primacy of jury trials and to treat them with the seriousness that they deserve. But if you do have a culture in which rape is constantly kind of questioned in a way that we really don't question people who claim any other crime has been committed against them. We don't say, if you're walking down the street and you're mugged, oh, well, you know, you shouldn't have had money in your pocket. You know, we say, on the other hand, it's still a trope that you hear out there. You still hear people talking about wearing short skirts as somehow a contributory factor. And that whole conversation has to change. And if that does, I think we will start to see a higher rate of conviction.
Can we bring in some views from people watching at home? Oliver says this is bringing it back to the question of should there be stricter punishments. Rape is abhorrent and premeditated. It deserves the strongest legal punishment available. Jade says rapists should have the right of taking sex taken away from them. And Nadeem says worth considering chemical castration for rapists, perhaps give the ability to free sperm if they want to have kids in future.
Wow, OK.
Interesting. Ava?
I just think, you know, as Archie said, it's a very emotive subject and stuff, and there is the question about people being named, but unfortunately, sometimes people don't, you know, they rape several times, and because rape victims feel ashamed, sometimes when somebody else has come forward, it allows other people to come forward. I mean, if we look at, you know, certain cases with child abuse and stuff like that, once someone's named, other people, there's almost safety in numbers, so it's a hard balance to strike.
Yeah. Lady here.
People don't come forward because the sentence is not long enough. Life is not life. Life is, OK, so I'll be good in prison and they'll let me out. You know, that person has to live with that, you know, for the rest of their lives. Like, I'm not talking from experience, but, you know, the rapist gets to walk free.
So you feel punishment should be stricter?
And it deters people from coming forward.
Life is not life, but when you get life, you are given a licence of 99 years, and you can be recalled to prison at absolutely any time.
But they should serve that sentence.
If you're seen with the wrong person, people don't understand that when they talk about life not being life.
I disagree. They should not be let out because they have behaved in prison. They are in prison for a reason.
But I would come back to the point about that being why people don't come forward. I'm not sure it works like that. I don't think that people make the decision about whether or not to report a crime based on the length of the sentence that they think that the person is going to get.
Yeah,
I think what they want... I'm not saying they don't care about it massively. I'm not saying they aren't likely to want it to be longer. But I think the main thing is they want the person to be caught and they want to be found guilty. If they don't think there's a prospect of that, that is the main thing that dissuades them, I think.
This lady here.
Right, we're talking about such a sensitive subject and there's so many different factors to consider here. I'm just going back to the point that the lady over there with the blue hair made, which is why should these victims be asked such personal questions? Just going on the other side, the defending barrister has to make sure that beyond reasonable doubt a case has been proven. And if those questions aren't asked, then how can we rely on that judgment that's made at the end? It's one of those subjects where it is difficult from every perspective, from every angle, and we as a society have to work out how we're going to make this better for the victims and better for the judicial system, because 3%, quite frankly, isn't good enough.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. That is unfortunately all that we've got time for. We're going to be off air now.